Alawapad, dear friends. Welcome to the Sunday morning devotional program sponsored by the Spiritual Assemblies of the Baha'is of South DeKalb County and Sandy Springs, Georgia. It's wonderful to have all of you with us today. Across the globe, the teachings of the Baha'i faith, brought to us more than 150 years ago by His Holiness Baha'u'llah, its founder, whose name in Arabic means the glory of God, have inspired and continue to inspire individuals and communities as they strive to improve their own lives and contribute to the advancement of civilization. Baha'i beliefs address such essential themes as the oneness of God and religion, the oneness of humanity and freedom from all forms of prejudice, the inherent nobility of the human being, the progressive revelation of religious truth, a gradual unfoldment of God's purpose with the appearance of each divine teacher, the development of spiritual qualities, which allows us to reflect the image God made us in, the integration of worship and service, with work performed in the spirit of service being accounted as worship in the eyes of God, the fundamental equality of the sexes, more widely evidenced in a setting of equal opportunity, the harmony between religion and science as an established fact, the centrality of justice in all human endeavor, the importance of education, particularly for children, and the dynamics of the relationships that bind together individuals, communities, and institutions as humanity marches towards its collective maturity. Again, welcome. We're pleased to have you all join us. We'll begin with opening devotions. Please mute yourselves if you're not speaking, and silence your electronic devices if you are speaking. Thank you. Gwen.
Say, God suffices all things above all things, and nothing in the heavens or in the earth but God suffices. Verily, He is in Himself the knower, the sustainer, the omnipotent. His Holiness the Bab.
Elizabeth. Elizabeth.
I beg thee to forgive me, O my Lord, for every mention but the mention of thee, and for every praise but the praise of thee, and for every delight but delight in thy nearness, and for every pleasure but the pleasure of communion with thee, and for every joy but the joy of thy love and of thy good pleasure, and for all things pertaining unto me, which bear no relationship unto thee, O thou who art the Lord of lords, he who provideth the means and unlocketh the door. Bob.
Kathy.
My God, my adored one, my King, my desire. What tongue can voice my thanks to thee? I was heedless, thou didst awaken me. I had turned back from thee, and thou didst graciously aid me to turn towards thee. I was as one dead, Thou didst quicken me with the water of life. I was withered. Thou didst revive me with the heavenly stream of thine utterance, which floweth forth from the pen of the All-Merciful. O divine providence, all existence is begotten by thy bounty. Deprive it not of the waters of thy generosity, neither do thou withhold it from the ocean of thy mercy. I beseech thee to aid and assist me at all times and under all conditions, and to seek from the heaven of thy grace thine ancient favor. Thou art in truth the Lord of bounty and the sovereign of the kingdom of eternity. Baha'u'llah.
Ateno.
Praised be thou, O Lord my God. This is thy servant who hath quaffed from the hands of thy grace the wine of thy tender mercy, and tasted of the savor of thy love in thy days. I beseech thee by the embodiments of thy names, whom no grief can hinder from rejoicing in thy love, or from gazing on thy face, and whom all the hosts of the heedless are powerless to cause to turn aside from the path of thy pleasure, to supply him with the good things thou dost possess, and to raise him up to such heights that he will regard the world even as a shadow that vanisheth, swifter than the twinkling of an eye. Keep him safe also, O my God, by the power of thy immeasurable majesty, from all that thou abhorrest. Thou art verily his Lord and the Lord of all worlds.
Yangting.
O Lord my God, assist thy loved ones to be firm in thy faith, to walk in thy ways, to be steadfast in thy cause. Give them thy grace to withstand the onslaught of self and passion, to follow the light of divine guidance. Thou art the powerful, the gracious, the self-subsisting, the bestower, the compassionate, the almighty, the all-bountiful. Abdul Baha'i.
Barbara Taylor.
It is better to guide one soul than to possess all that is on earth. For as long as that guided soul is under the shadow of the tree of divine unity, he and the one who hath guided him will both be recipients of God's tender mercy, whereas possession of earthly things will cease at the time of death. The path of guidance is one of love and compassion, not of force and coercion. This hath been God's method in the past, and shall continue to be in the future. He causeth him who he pleaseth to enter the shadow of his mercy. Verily, he is the supreme protector, the all-generous. There is no paradise more wondrous for any soul than to be exposed to God's manifestation in his day, to hear his verses and believe in them, to attain his presence, which is not but the presence of God, to sail upon the sea of the heavenly kingdom of his good pleasure, and to partake of the choice fruits of the paradise of his divine oneness. The Baha'i.
Consecrate thou, O my God, the whole of this tree unto him, that from it may be revealed all the fruits created by God within it, for him through whom God hath willed to reveal all that he pleaseth. By thy glory, I had not wished that this tree should ever bear any branch or fruit that could fail to bow down before him on the day of his revelation, or refuse to laud thee through him, as beseemeth thy glory, the glory of his all glorious revelation, the sublimity of his most sublime concealment. And shouldst thou behold, O my God, any branch, leaf, or fruit upon me that hath failed to bow down before him on the day of his revelation, cut it off, O my God, from that tree, for it is not of me, nor shall it return unto me. Elizabeth?
My object is none other than the betterment of the world and the tranquility of its people. The well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. This unity can never be achieved so long as the counsels which the pen of the Most High hath revealed are suffered to pass unheeded. Through the power of the words he hath uttered, the whole of the human race can be illumined with the light of unity, and the remembrance of his name is able to set on fire the hearts of all men and burn away the veils that intervene between them and his glory. Baha'u'llah.
Dungting?
We must now highly resolve to arise and lay hold of all those instrumentalities that promote the peace and well-being and happiness, the knowledge, culture, and industry, the dignity, value, and station of the entire human race. Thus, through the restoring waters of pure intention and unselfish effort, the earth of human potentialities will blossom with its own latent excellence and flower into the praiseworthy qualities and bear and flourish until it comes to rival that rose garden of knowledge will belong to our forefathers. Then will this holy land of Persia becomes in every sense the focal center of human perfections, reflecting as if in a mirror that full of panoply of world civilization, Abd Baha, the secret of divine civilization.
Thank you to all of our readers. Next, we're going to have a healing prayer. If you would like to remember anyone, any loved one through this prayer for healing, please feel free to call out their name at this time.
Aurora Mboya,
Milan Bowers,
Max Weiner,
Tom Trail,
Trish Hendon,
art the all bountiful, the all knowing, the all wise. Thy name is my healing. Thy name is my healing, oh my God.
Next, we're blessed to have a musical offering.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, turn around arts, people all over the world, brothers, sisters, around the planet. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Come on now. Ladies and
I'm sorry, friends. Was it dragging?
It was lagging a little bit.
Okay, okay. So the internet is acting up, so we'll forego that.
All right, let's move on. Friends, each week we're blessed to have a guest speaker share with us their insights on a particular topic. This week, we're honored to have with us Dr. Atiano Mboya. Dr. Mboya grew up in a Baha'i family and teaches international law and is the proud mother of 2 adult children. She will be speaking today about 4 kinds of love. Please, friends, please welcome Dr. Mboya.
Thank you. Dear friends, I'm really delighted to be here this morning and to share a few quotations on the 4 kinds of love that are drawn from a Baha'i talk that was given about 100 years ago in Paris by Abdul Baha, who is the perfect example of how a Baha'i should live. So I'll be paraphrasing his talk on the 4 kinds of love. And before I get to that actual section, what I'll do, I'll just have some general presentation on quotations about love and the qualities of love that are drawn from the Baha'i writings. And then the second section will go into the 4 kinds of love that Abdul Baha spoke about when he visited Paris in 1911, 1912. And then the third section will be really just some 3 framing questions for us to share our experiences and share learnings in this area of love. The good thing about this topic of love is that we all have experience with love in one way or another all our lives. So we'll all be able to share and contribute and make it a conversation among ourselves. So I'm hoping this will be more of a conversation, and my brief presentation is really just to kickstart that conversation. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then at the end of that sharing, I'll come back and we can actually have the active conversation around these 3 framing questions and any other additional questions or comments that may come to mind. Okay, slideshow from the beginning. That's what I need. you.
Love is the secret of God's holy dispensation, the manifestation of the All-Merciful, the fountain of spiritual outpourings. This quotation gives us three qualities of love. One, it is a secret. What is it a secret of? It's a secret of the organization, the system of governance of a holy dispensation, meaning a religious community. So love is really the secret organization of all the different divine religious communities. Love is also the manifestation, meaning it shows us the mercy of God. And love is like a fountain of spiritual gifts, spiritual blessings that come to us from God. Love is heaven's kindly light, the Holy Spirit's eternal breath that vivifieth the human soul. Love is the cause of God's revelation to humanity, the vital bond inherent in accordance with the divine creation in the realities of things. So this quote adds additional aspects of love, describing it as a kindly light, as the Holy Spirit's eternal breath, which gives life to the human soul. It is the cause of God's revelation to humanity. It is also the vital bond inherent in all of creation, in the realities of things. So God revealing God's essence to the human world through creation is an act of love. Love is the one means that ensures true felicity both in this world and the next. Love is the light that guides in darkness, the living link that unites God with humanity, that assures the progress of every illumined soul. So thus far, the qualities of love that have come through these quotations include love being the secret of community organization, love being the embodiment of God's mercy, love is kind, love is eternal, it gives life to the human soul, it is a fountain of spiritual gifts, it is a vital bond in the realities of all things. It's a light that guides. It's a link between human beings and God. And it is the assurance of the soul's progress in the spiritual realms. When we think of felicity, happiness, joyousness, and the idea of an illumined soul, meaning a soul, a spirit that's radiating light, divine love, I feel that this picture really captures it, which is why I've included it here today. These are all aspects of divine love, which is the revelation of the merciful God. Revelation is something divine or supernatural disclosed to human beings. And it's interesting that God's revelation to humanity is a process that takes place through love. So to come to the topic of today, 4 kinds of love, the Baha'i teachings tell us that there are 4 kinds of love reflected in this idea, this concept of divine love. The first is the love that flows from God to humanity. This is a grace-filled love through which God's creation has come into existence, including ourselves, human beings. The love that flows from God to humanity is the origin of all the love in the world of creation. The second kind of love is love that flows from human beings to God. This is faith. It's attraction to the divine. It is spiritual radiance and progress, both individual and collective. And it is entrance into the kingdom of God, meaning it's the choice to strive to live according to God's teachings and being open to receiving the bounties of God. This love that flows from human beings to God is a choice that we make. And in return, we receive the bounties of God which come to us through God's teachings. The third kind of love is love of God towards the self or identity of God. This is the love that's captured in the phrase, God is love. This love is the transfiguration of God's beauty, the reflection of God in the mirror of creation. This is the reality of love. It's described as the ancient love, the eternal love, and that through this love of God towards the self or identity of God, through this love, through one ray of it, all the other kinds of love come into existence. And the fourth kind of love is the love of human beings for each other. This love is attained through recognizing the divine, the spiritual in each other and being attracted to those qualities. It is attained through the knowledge of God so that human beings see the divine love reflected in the heart. Each sees in the other the beauty of God reflected in the soul. And finding this point of similarity, they are attracted to one another in love. This love is to be distinguished from a passing love that can come about through the accidents of life, the circumstances of life. This fourth kind of love of human beings for each other is one that is anchored in our divine essence, our divine reality, our divine qualities. And this kind of love is an eternal love. This love of human beings for each other is the foundation of the unity of the human race in the world of existence. Indeed, there is no greater power than the power of love in this world. So now that I've presented those Baha'i quotations on love, the four kinds of love, I wanted to go into a story that depicts the loving nature of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, when he was alive in Persia, now known as Iran, back in the 19th century. One story that has come down to us is that Baha'u'llah was traveling in Iran with a few of his followers, and he was going through a lonely, isolated countryside. And there they came across a hermit that lived alone in a cave. This hermit was understood as a holy person, And as he saw Baha'u'llah coming by, he really felt attracted to him and wished that he could host Baha'u'llah in his humble cave. Baha'u'llah acceded to the hermit's request and visited him in his cave, and they had a very loving conversation. They have a wonderful exchange. And as the hours wore on, the hermit started getting nervous because he had, he lived a very frugal life. He had very little, really almost nothing material that he could offer in the way of hospitality to his esteemed guest. And, he then explained to Baha'u'llah that he didn't have much at all. And he was actually somewhat embarrassed to just offer a piece of dry meat and dark bread and some water from a spring nearby. And Baha'u'llah told him to go ahead and offer what he had. And they shared this food together. And the story is that as they were doing this, this hermit had never found this food as delicious as he did on that day. And in fact, Baha'u'llah stayed with him for 3 days. And during that period, they, of course, had different conversations, shared different kinds of knowledge together. And by the time he left, really the hermit felt that he had never experienced such love and such understanding and such acceptance from anyone. So this is one of the stories we have of Baha'u'llah's love that really impacted a person that was open to receiving this love and that wanted to come into contact with the spiritual love. Another story that we have, and actually before I go to the next story, Baha'u'llah's eldest son, called Abdul Baha, who was his successor, tells us that this story of the hermit really shows us that very little is required when one is nourished by the sweetness of the love of God. Okay, so very little is required in the way of material possessions when one is nurtured by the sweetness of the love of God. So the second story I have is one that has to do with Abdul Baha. This is a picture of him, the son of Baha'u'llah, as an exemplar of love. Abdul Baha lived in the prison city of Akka. And during that period, he would spend his days serving the people in that city. However, there was a man that hated him so much that whenever he would see Abdul Baha approaching, he would turn his back, fearing that he might lose his hatred. Okay, so he wanted to keep this hatred towards Abdul Baha so much that when he'd see Abdul Baha coming, he would turn away. One day they met in a narrow street in Akka, and he was forced to meet Abdul Baha, to face him in person. And Abdul Baha tapped him lightly on the shoulder and said to him, "Wait a few moments until I speak. However great may be your hatred of me, it can never be as strong as my love for you." The man was startled to hear these words from Abdul Baha, and he was made on that occasion to feel the unconquerable power of love. And this last quotation from Abdul Baha, he says, "If we are not happy and joyous at this season, for what other season shall we wait? And for what other time shall we look?"
Okay, friends, so that was really just an introductory presentation on love, and I'm really hoping we can now have a conversation on this topic. It's a very deep topic, but of course the beauty of it is, like I said at the beginning, we all have experiences with love, and is anyone willing to share what are some of the experiences or one or two experiences of God's love for you that you'd be willing to share with us? A time when you felt that you really could feel God's love working in your life in a given circumstance. Anyone willing to share? This is really a reflection of, one of the four kinds of love. So this one was, the love of God for humanity, which in the presentation, I mentioned how sort of our creation, the fact that God created us, is really a sign of God's love for us. So anyone willing to share a time when they've really felt that love of God for them? Any occasion, or even just the love of God working in their lives? I have a story, but I'll certainly share it after folks have. Anyone?
I can begin. This is more the second kind of the love of God working in my life. And it's a small thing in many ways, but it was so striking to me at the time. I had no doubt that this was God moving within my life. We normally live in China, in the southwest of China, in a place called Chengdu. And Chengdu is surrounded by mountains. And in that province, Sichuan, the western mountains and the western part of the province run right up into Tibet. And so most of the people in that part of the province are Tibetan culturally. So I've traveled there a good bit, and I speak a little bit of Tibetan, though unfortunately not the dialect they speak there. And a friend of mine, also a Baha'i, actually Jeff Strife, who used to live in South Dakab, was also living in Chengdu at the time, and he had wanted to go up and see this very large, it's hard to describe. It was a sort of a Buddhist university, but it had come together organically. It just sort of happened. It wasn't really founded in any sense. One teacher settled in this one area, people began to come, and then more people came and more teachers came. And before long, there was a humongous collection of Buddhist teachers and students all together in this one town. And so he wanted to go and see it. So it takes a long time to get up into the mountains. The roads are, even now, they're much better than they used to be. But once you get beyond the first major town west of Chengdu, the roads are not that good. It takes a long time to get anywhere. And so although I had some friends in a town way up against the border of Tibet, I hadn't been able to go and see them in over a year. And I had been thought to myself, it'd be nice to go there, but it's pretty much the opposite side of that part of the province from where Jeff wanted to go. And so we were riding in the bus up to the first major town in that part of the province. And I thought to myself casually as we were going up there, wouldn't it be strange if we couldn't get to what's called Larungar, where Jeff wanted to go, and instead we ended up going to this other town where I have some friends. And so we get to the first town, it's called Kangbing, and we're checking into our hotel, and the people in front of us make a comment about the fact that Larungar, the place we wanted to go, had been closed down to foreigners. And so we investigated, and sure enough, there was no chance of getting there. Some people had actually tried to go and literally been put on the next bus back. And the police simply weren't letting any foreigners come to that town at the time. And so we were trying to decide what to do. But I felt a little bit bad because this was basically me. I wanted to go see my friends. It wasn't anything to do with Jeff, and I felt like I shouldn't force him. Maybe he wanted to go and see something different, but Jeff, being Jeff, was basically saying, "Look, whatever you want to do, let's do it." And I couldn't decide quite what to do. And so, as I was laying in my bed thinking about it, as I was drifting off to sleep, I had a passage from Abdul Baha that sort of ran through my head, and it was that famous passage where he says, and as you have faith, so shall your powers and blessings be. This is the balance. This is the balance. This is the balance. And so as I drifted to sleep, my thought, the thing what went through my head was, because since I was questioning, I was doubting basically. I was thinking, it is such a coincidence, but surely God isn't intervening in my life in order to get me to go back to one town instead of another. It just seemed too much, But after that thought ran through my head, as I drifted off to sleep, the thought that occurred to me was, fine, then I'll have faith. And so we did go to the town, and I got to see these friends again and to renew the relationship that I've been building with them. And we also had a great time too. It's a beautiful place. The people are really nice. And so it all worked out. And again, it was a very small thing, but it was for me a strange and very obvious example in which I felt like I saw the hand of divine providence intervening in my own life in a weird way. In a way that I would never have expected. It was almost to me like a reminder of saying, God can and does reach into our lives to change the course of things and alter them in ways that he knows they are better for us, But it's a small thing there.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think an important part of that was that you chose to have faith. Okay, so this aspect of humanity's love for God, I think those two things really work together. God's love is constantly pouring down on us, but we actually tap into it when we turn to the reality of God through faith and when we accept those blessings. So thanks for sharing that. Definitely those two aspects work together. Anyone else have a story they'd like to share with us?
I might share from my experience. I never understood what prompted my curiosity about race relations, but I was always, from my adult life, interested in people of different cultures and different races. And right after Dr. King was killed, I was living outside of Atlanta, and I used to listen to a radio show called Ring Radio. It was a talk show, and they were having discussions about Stokely Carmichael coming to Atlanta, and it would be a bloodbath because he was part of SNCC, which is an organization that was controversial. And I was listening as I was interested, and I couldn't help myself. I picked up the phone and called in, and I said, I'd like to expand my relationship with the Black community, but I don't know anybody. I live outside of Atlanta. The only person I see that's Black is my garbage man. I can't very well invite him in for a cup of tea and talk. So I put down the phone and I forgot about the conversation until the next day. And I turned on the radio again, and they were having this discussion. I realized they were continuing the discussion we had the day before. And people were saying, I'd like to meet people and I'd like to help. And if there's any kind of a racial riot, I'd like to be able to help in some way. And I realized they were talking about the comment that I had made. So I called back the radio station and finally got in, and this man said to me, I'm so glad you called. I've had so many calls, and this lady named Mrs. King wants to talk to you. Not Coretta King, but another lady named Mrs. King. And so I tried to call her all day long, and her phone was busy all day long, most of the day. At the end of the day, I finally got through. And she said, I'm so glad you called. She said, I've been writing in lipstick on my mirror because I couldn't get to a pen to write down the names. And I was going to invite you over to my home, but she said, so many people have called me, I have to find a bigger place. So we managed to meet in her church downtown Atlanta, and she set up the chairs in a circle, and she put a child's chair in the middle. She said, the future belongs to our children, and we're going to come and be together and talk about how we can make that future come about. And I was with this group for about a year, year and a half. And we met. We didn't want to meet like a president, vice president, and secretary kind of thing. We wanted to meet as friends. And we ended up deciding to have a potluck and let our children play together and get to know each other each month. And this was a wonderful start, because soon afterwards I discovered the Baha'i faith. And this has been an ongoing passion in my life ever since. And I know it was spiritually given to me by God to follow this path and to be adamant about my desire to help in race relations.
Thank you for sharing that, Jo. And in fact, that's an example of, the third kind of love, which talked about love of, well, the fourth one, love of human beings for each other, which is totally fine. Friends, feel free to share any of the four loves in your life, right, as you've experienced them in your life. But that's a wonderful example of, sort of your attraction and wanting to connect with neighbors and people from a different race, and because you were open to it and you had faith in it, and it actually materialized. Thank you. Anyone else willing to share? So we've had an example from China, we've had an example from Atlanta. I'm happy to share an example from Africa. Mine goes back a few decades when I was still a youth, and I was traveling to West Africa. I'm from Kenya, but I had gone to Nigeria for a 4-month service project. Anyway, it's a long story, but the upshot of it was that I arrived in Nigeria without a visa, and the reason for that was no fault of my own. I had been calling, the British Embassy to get the visa. That, in those days you had to get through the British Embassy, and they had told me I didn't need a visa. And so, literally on the day, like the night before I left, someone from the embassy says, "You need a visa," and I couldn't change my tickets. I couldn't do anything. I said, "You know what? I've been calling the embassy for 2-3 weeks, really, clarifying the visa situation, and now I have to get onto this plane and go." So I'm on the plane, and I'm just super nervous about what's going to happen to me when I get there. So I said, well, let me start making friends with some of my fellow passengers in case I get stopped at the airport. They can call, the Baha'is in Nigeria and let them know that, I'm here and I'm sort of caught up at the airport. So I turned to this gentleman sitting next to me and I said, "Hey, are you going to Lagos?" This was actually a flight that was stopping in Lagos, but going to Ghana. And he said to me, "Oh, no, I am not going to Lagos. I'm on my way to Ghana." He's like, "I will never return to Lagos. The last time I was there, I was robbed of all my possessions at the airport." I was like, oh my goodness, this is not an encouraging sort of response. And so I sort of took all the money I had and put it in my shoes. And then, I was actually sitting next to the aisle, so there wasn't really someone on the other side that I could now try and talk to. Anyway, so we land in Lagos and we get up, and there was like maybe 5 people getting off that plane. This whole full plane, there was maybe just 5 of us that were going to Nigeria. And I was the last one off the plane. And as soon as you stepped into the airport space, there was this security guy who was checking our passports. And so he checked everyone's passports and sort of pointed them to this counter and opened my passport. I don't know what he was looking for, but he sent me to a different counter. And the counter he sent me to had this guy with another policeman, sort of standing behind him. And all the people working in the airport now started staring at me. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I guess this can't be a good thing. And yes, I get to the counter, and the man looks at my passport. He opens all the pages and he says, "What brings you to Nigeria?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to visit the Baha'is of Nigeria." And he said, "You're a Baha'i?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have a letter of invitation from the Baha'is?" And I did have a letter. So I gave him the letter. And then he says to me, Alabha, welcome to Nigeria. Okay, so Alabha is it's a greeting among Baha'is. And I was shocked. I was like, you're a Baha'i? He said, yes. He said, how long are you here for? I said, 4 months. So he gave me the visa. He said, here, let me help you through customs with your luggage so no one gives you any trouble. And so he escorted me and got my bags. And then he said, is anyone coming to meet you? And I said, yes, I believe there's someone here to meet me. So we looked around. We couldn't see anyone, with holding a placard with my name or anything. And so I said, well, I'll just go ahead and go to a hotel. So he got me a taxi, he paid for the taxi and told the taxi driver to take me to this hotel. And when I checked into the hotel, my phone rings and it's him again. He says, are you fine? Is everything okay? I said, everything's good. Thank you so much for your help. And I've actually already called, the Baha'is and let them know I'm here and they'll come and pick me up tomorrow. So that for me was really sort of, a real confirmation of, sort of God's presence and love and confirmation in my life. And I really felt, I had done, I'd taken all the practical steps I had needed to, it wasn't just some sort of crazy idea of I'll go without a visa. But it was really interesting that sort of the one counter that I went to was, it happened to be a Baha'i. And so when I told the Baha'is in Nigeria about this, they were actually shocked. They were like, I said, oh, this is what happened, but thankfully the Baha'i that works at the airport helped me. And they were like, the Baha'i that works at the airport? There's no Baha'i that works at the airport that we know. I was like, no, he's there, and in fact, I didn't even, sort of ask for his contact or anything. I just assumed I'll see him at the feast. I'll see him at, some Baha'i event. And they're like, no, we don't know of any such person. And so the 4 months I was there was this whole conversation about who is this mysterious Baha'i who works at the airport that, gave her visa. And, the word was that must have been Abdul Baha. So that's a story that whenever I'm sort of in my moments of waiting for signals or just, deep trouble or worry, then I always realize that, God is always there and comes through for us. So that's my story. So we've got China, we've had Atlanta, we've had an African story as well. Anyone else?
How about Finland?
Okay, let's bring it on.
I actually was going to go to Finland. My sister was pioneering there, and I was going to go there to do some teaching work for a while. And we had made arrangements for my sister and I to meet at the Helsinki train station. And like most train stations, they're large. They have a lot of people going back and forth and all that, and very busy. And some people spoke English, but most did not. And so I arrived and we were supposed to meet. I know what my sister looks like, but I kept looking around and didn't see her anywhere. And an hour went by and I thought, and this is long before cell phones. We're talking about in the 70s, okay? And thank God for cell phones. Anyway, I kept waiting and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? Well, those of us who have been Baha'is for a little bit of time know that most of the time you can look in the phone book and you can find a Baha'i number. And because we didn't have cell phones, luckily people still use phone books. And so I said, okay, Baha'u'llah, please help me find out where my sister is or find out where I need to go or get me some help. I'll call the Baha'is. So I called the Baha'i number in Helsinki, and it took several minutes to find somebody who spoke English that could talk to me and help me out. Well, luckily, they knew my sister, and they said we could get a hold of her and find out where she is or whatever. So they called her place, and she said, oh, I'm supposed to meet you the next day. So here I am in another, in a town where I don't speak much Finnish, which is a very difficult language, and in a train station. And how am I going to do whatever? Didn't have a whole lot of money for hotels. So one of the Baha'is at the Baha'i Center, and this to me shows the love and compassion within our faith. But a couple said, well, we'll come pick you up and you can have dinner with us and spend the night. And then the next day we'll take you back to the train station to meet your sister. And my heart was just so overwhelmed that people I don't know, except that we love Baha'u'llah together. And so I said, okay. And I said, well, how will I know you? And the guy said, well, I'm almost 6 feet tall and I have brown hair. Well, I don't know about you, but in a train station where there's a lot of people going through, that's not much of a description, but I had faith. And I said, Baha'u'llah, help me find this guy when he comes. So he and his wife did come. And I know this sounds very Hollywood, but I swear when they walked in amongst all these people in this train station, it's like violins started playing and this radiance from these people. And I had no doubt that that was them. And they had no doubt that I was who I was. And they came over to me across all these people and said, Allah Pa. And I said, Allah Pa. And they took me home. They fed me and I stayed there. The next day, they took me back to the station where I met my sister. And it was, you know, when you're out there in the world and you don't know much about language or people, and obviously I didn't realize then, but I've learned that when you're an American and you're in another country, there's so many idioms or the way we walk, the way we eat, the way we do everything is so strange compared to people outside this country or even in this country sometimes. But, you know, I was sticking out like a sore thumb and I didn't know it. And luckily people were kind and tried to help me as they could, but Baha'u'llah just took my hand and he led me through all this. And I was most grateful to these people. And it was really quite wonderful. So that's my story from Finland.
Thanks for sharing, Gwen. So we've had Asia, we've had North America, we've had Africa, we've had Europe. Any examples from anywhere else?
I've got one, Tiana, and your story reminded me of it, of what happened to me. And this was when I was trying to go on my pilgrimage. Being from South Carolina and the last of 12 children that my mom gave birth to, I did not have a proper birth certificate. So I was trying to apply for my passport. And in the meantime, you know, all the other arrangements for me to go and you know, this is a whole story with how Baha'u'llah walked me through that whole process, you know, of being able to go on pilgrimage. But it was a week before we were due to fly out to Haifa, and my passport still have not arrived. They were telling me I needed all of these documents, and I was running around, calling back to South Carolina, everything, trying to get all of this paperwork and whatnot done and whatever. So we got down to the last week, and I had not heard anything from them. So I called the office, and the lady I was speaking to, she was just so matter of fact, no, you don't have the proper paperwork. We cannot issue you this document. I'm sorry, there's nothing that we can do, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I was like, well, trying to reason with her, you know, this is what happened. She was like, I'm sorry, Miss Hennix, my hands are tied. That's all that I can do. So I said, okay, we hung up the phone. I hung the phone up, I stretched out on the table because like I said, it was a week before, all the arrangements, hotel, everything was already completely paid for. About 2 minutes later, my phone rang again and I answered it and she said, Ms. Hennix, this is Mrs., you know, whoever from the nationalization office. She goes, for some reason, I took your application to my supervisor. And my supervisor is from South Carolina also. So she understands the paperwork and the, you know, the slackness, not but of how things get lost. And she said, she authorized me to expedite your passport and you will have it in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
So I know that was Baha'u'llah, because at the beginning, she was just flat out, no, there's nothing that I can do. But who moved her heart to go and speak to her supervisor, and her supervisor being from South Carolina too, is like, thank you, God. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Wonderful. I think Deng Ting, did you want to share?
Yes, it is amazing to listen to all those magical stories. So just one thing came into my mind is like every time when you're faced with doubts and difficulties and challenges or confusions, love is the way. The story I want to share is actually happened recently because I am running my own online positive psychology institute right now. And I have one student, she is a college student. She has very bad relationship with her mother. Literally, she hates her mother. Like her mother is the person she hates the most in the world. So her mother wants to change her. She heard the story about my institute. So she sent her daughter over. Hopefully her daughter will learn the positive psychology and then forgive her and love her mother back. But unfortunately, the daughter came here maybe after the second week, the third week. And then she started to tell her mother, I don't want to take it. This is not what I want. I just wanted to quit. So her mother started contacting me like 4 weeks later and said, okay, my daughter says the course that's not, quite suit her needs. So we needed to basically drop out from the program. And I said, that's okay, I understand. So I told her our policy of dropping out policy is basically after 2 weeks, there is no refund. And I told her maybe way ahead of time already. It's also written in our whatever agreement. And we can't communicate with each other through the WeChat. And after she read my message, she became furious. I mean, literally furious and angry. And she said, how dare you to tell me that we dropped out the program, we got no refund at all. And she became very assertive. And she said, I'm going to fight with you. I'm going to get every penny back. Okay. And then because I wanted to, I've been running this program for over a year. I've been already stick to the principle, so this is our policy. And I feel like once I make an exception, and then it's going to be very hard for me to run the program in the future. So I was just okay, I needed to stick to my policy, keep the principle. And so I keep kind of give her sorry, I understand you need your money. And she said, and then she came in, she became really, really abusive. I just what's going on? And she started calling me all kinds of nasty names, like horrible names. She said, blah, 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 just really bad. Okay. And then, of course, nobody liked to be attacked like that, and for no reason. I said, I didn't do anything wrong. After all, her daughter is still coming. She's still coming to the class. Her daughter hasn't said, I wanted to quit. Okay. At least she didn't tell me. So I was very troubled by this. And at first I thought maybe, did I do something wrong? She called me like liar, cheater, and, just wanted money. And I was like, what did I do wrong? I have the policy very clear. And then she started to threaten me. She said, I am going to make you look bad internationally. Okay, I am going to talk to those media and badmouth about your program, and then you will see, how far you can go. And then after that, and said, I am going to report you to the whatever 工商局. I'm going to sue you. And she sent me all those nasty messages every day, like nonstop. So every time you become scared and look at the phone. I was like, oh, what is going on today? So I'm going on this kind of a dilemma. so how should I respond? But every time when first that story of Abdul Baha just always inspired me. The story that when he was being hated by people and he just keep being kind to them, not taking it personally. And that's kind of reminding me is I did not get angry with her at all. There was absolutely no hatred inside me, but actually I felt sad for her. I felt bad for her because she is a cousin of my former student. And then I contacted my student, find out, okay, what's going on with this cousin? Okay, what advice do you have for how to deal with her? And once that student hear my reaction, she said she felt, oh, I am really sorry if I recommended your program to her. I really thought, you can help her daughter. And it turns out I was right. I should feel sorry for her because that woman had a really horrible growing up child experiences, basically growing up being abused by her parents, really bad, home abuse. And then she's educating her daughter in the same way, abuse her daughter. And that's why the daughter hated her and she hated her parents. She just assumed everybody is bad, everybody's evil. And after I learned that, I felt very sorry for her. I did not feel angry. I really hope I can help her. I did not take any of her accuse or attack personally. I just say, okay, that's just who she is. She's angry with the whole world right now. She's not just specifically attacking me. Mm-hmm. So I will see. Her daughter is still in my program, keep coming. And I tell my team, say, okay, maybe how can we help her? Okay, I keep reminding my team because she's abusing my team members as well. I just don't take it personally. Don't take personally. Her hatred has nothing to do with us. We just keep reminding ourselves, love is the way. Okay, so that's what I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And the kind of love for humanity, like we mentioned, like Abdul Baha mentions, this is looking at the spiritual qualities and grounding that love in those spiritual qualities. And it's very difficult for someone that's been raised where, those qualities were not nurtured, and in fact, sort of the absence of spiritual qualities is what she grew up with. So it's really, really difficult for her to be able to flip and find, those spiritual qualities and focus there. And it's wonderful that, that's how you're taking the situation and encouraging your staff members to continue that way and not to take it personally, but really understanding it in the context of the absence of the spiritual nurturing that she didn't get when she was young too. Wow. And hopefully you'll make a difference for her daughter, no
I hope so. Yeah, she's keeping coming to. Actually, I have a question. It's what's the difference between love and like? So for example, if we dislike someone because we have different opinions or personalities or just habits, we don't get along, but can we still love them? So what's the, can we still love one even though we really dislike them? Okay,
so that's all philosophical questions. Hey, who would like to take that one up? Any of the friends?
Did I understand her to say, how do you handle that situation? How do you keep loving someone? Is that what she said?
Yeah, how do you love someone that you don't like?
Well, you have to try and find something you have in common, some little niche in there that you can relate to, and start with that little piece, almost like the smallest piece of a puzzle. If you can handle that little bit and find that one way that you can relate to the other person. You remember the quote about if a person has 99 good qualities and one bad quality, you should overlook. And that's the only thing I can think of, is to keep looking at that one good quality and build on it a little bit, build out from it a little bit.
If I might add to that,
Please.
I know that there are some times when our children are growing up, we can't stand them, but we love them. And what we can't stand is not them, but what they're doing. You know, I've learned that God is in the whole of creation. He is in the devil as well as he is in me. So I try to look for God in people and recognize that the nobility of the human being, these are God's offspring, so to speak. So yes, we can love, but we don't love what they do sometimes. So try to separate actions from the actual person. This person, okay, goes out and he robs a store. If it's your own child or whatever, you still love the child, but you surely don't love the fact that he robbed the store. And so separating it out for me is very helpful so that I can truly love everyone, but just not some of the stuff that they do. I know that that has been so clear to me this summer with all of the Black Lives Matter protests, the storming of the Capitol on January 6th. You know, they're still God's children. They may be causing an insurrection or whatever. It's because there's something in them that wants something better. But to go and storm and harm others, that's not going to really give you what you want in the end. So then eventually, for me, I bring you to God in myself. It's how I'm viewing you, not how maybe the world is viewing you. I don't know if I'm even making any sense, connecting, but again, it's the love of God in action when we can love our enemies as well as we love our friends. The best in all of us is God.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was really helpful. It reminded me of the story of Abdul Baha and the gentleman in the man in Akka that really hated him, right? You know,
Absolutely.
When he finally had this opportunity to speak to that man, he made him realize that, you know, however much you hate me, just know that I love you much more.
I love you.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
When Joan was talking, it reminded me of the story too, and I'm paraphrasing, probably not, I might not remember all the details, but you know, Abdul Baha and somebody were walking down the street and they saw a dead dog on the side of the road, and the guy was saying, oh, how ugly that is, and you know, it's all torn up and everything. And Abdul Baha said, but look at the beautiful white teeth. And so, you know, he found something beautiful about that dog, even though it had been mauled and looked terrible. And so, and we recently had family members visit us from out of town, and it was great. It was the first time in over 2 years. But one of them has, how can I say this? Political persuasions that are not quite what Ernest and I believe in. And so I love her, but we just don't talk about politics in the house. And I have to go past that and look at the good qualities she has and realize that some of the ways that she thinks about things aren't necessarily the way we think about things. So in answer to your question, my dear, I think, you know, if you see the God, I think we've all kind of said that, if we see the God in the person, and sometimes it's hard to look past certain things, but that's the only way that I know to do that. And it's difficult sometimes when, especially when in your situation, you were getting verbally chastised, you know, but basically God created that woman and her circumstances has made her the way she is. But somewhere deep in her soul, you know, there's something good that hopefully will come out, and you can help her daughter. Good luck. God bless.
Thank you for sharing, friends. And certainly the fact that that this lady wants something better for her daughter, her relationship with her daughter, that's definitely a positive thing, So that's all that comes to mind in that situation, So if you ever have a chance,
I think she definitely loves her daughter and cares for the daughter, and she wanted to help her daughter. So yes, it's definitely a good thing about the mother. Yeah. And she wants to change, Okay.
Well, I hate to interrupt because this is a wonderful discussion, but I'm afraid we're out of time. So I need to start wrapping things up. At this point, we'd like to welcome any guests here to share where you're from and how you happen to be with us today. This includes Baha'is visiting from out of town or travelers who have recently returned to the area, and we'd love to hear from you. Is there anyone who'd like to share today?
I'm Joan McGovern from Hickson, Tennessee. I've been to this meeting before several times, and I like it because I see my diversity. In my community, we don't have a lot of diversity, and I miss that. So I come to you to enjoy my fellow Baha'i friends from all over. And I appreciate that so much, and I hope to continue. I spent part of the morning in Clearwater, Florida with Baha'i friends there, and then I switched over to Atlanta. And my Sunday morning is full, and I'm full of energy and love for everybody. And now I'll go on my Facebook page and try and communicate my love for my fellow men to other people out there that are friends of mine that may not be Baha'is.
It is one of the wonderful blessings of this, silver lining of all that's happened, that we have this opportunity to use Zoom to communicate with people all over. Is there anyone else? All right. So if not, let me finish up with a couple of announcements. Today's program has been recorded to the YouTube channel entitled South DeKalb Baha'i Unity Center, where you can view it and invite others to view it as well. For members of the Baha'i faith, you are warmly encouraged to make a financial contribution to the South DeKalb Baha'i Fund, the Sandy Springs Baha'i Fund, and the National Baha'i Fund through the online contribution system at ocs.baha'i.us, or to mail a check to the Baha'i Unity Center at 2370 Wesley Chapel Road, Decatur, Georgia, 30035. I want to give many thanks to everyone who worked together to make this program possible today. Our wonderful speaker, Dr. Mboya, our volunteer readers, all of you, Barbara Hennix, who really is the thing that makes this happen every week. She's the power behind it all. And of course, to the spiritual assemblies of the Baha'is of South DeKalb and Sandy Springs. And thanks to everyone who is here for sharing this day this morning with us. So I'm Stephen Boynton, and until next time, may you stay well, safe and stay well. And we're going to end now with a closing prayer for the departed.
I will say that, Stephen.
All right.
Oh my God, O thou the forgiver of sins, bestower of gifts, dispeller of afflictions. Verily, I beseech thee to forgive the sins of such as have abandoned the physical garment and have ascended to the spiritual world. O my Lord, purify them from trespasses, dispel their sorrows, and change their darkness into light. Cause them to enter the garden of happiness. Cleanse them with the most pure water, and grant them to behold thy splendors on the loftiest mount. Dubaha.
Thank you, everyone. Alawapa. And we hope to see you all next week. So.
Aloha. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Aloha.
Aloha.